Good evening, folks. Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, part 8 of my interview series with Anthony DiMaggio. Good evening, folks. Freddie Vasquez. Welcome. This is Basement Politics, part 8 of my interview with former Yonkers police officer, Yonkers Police Lieutenant Anthony DiMaggio. Today is Saturday, October 15, 2022. Good evening, folks. Good evening. How you doing tonight? Sorry about yesterday. I apologize. But we on today. And I'll be welcoming my guest, Anthony DiMaggio, any minute here. So thank you for joining me. This is Basement Politics. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Really quick, I want to say thank you to Yesenia Tovar. She responded to my podcast. I did mention her in her appointment to the planning board. I did comment, I responded, and I didn't say anything negative, I don't think, right? Maybe I did. I don't know. I don't think so. But, I'm extending an invitation for you and anyone has an open invitation. Just reach out to me. I'm talking about individuals I may speak about on the podcast to clarify anything. I will, you could come on anytime. Just reach out to me. Right. And so she came on to say that I had it wrong. I guess she's not related to the Tovar family. But, that was something that was told to me by someone in the Latino community here in Yonkers. And this was before she was even appointed, or I even, this appointment. It was a while back. So I just kind of, assumed that was true. If, I don't know if it's not true, that she's saying it's not true. So I'm going to roll with that. But, I apologize. And, thank you. For clarifying that. I do get it wrong sometimes. But again, I don't think I said anything wrong. I do want to, read her response really quick. Mr. Vasquez, I have seen your podcast show, and I would like to make some clarifications to your statements. I am not family with the Tovars from Yonkers. Geez, do I just assume everybody with the same last name? That's like a thing I do, I guess. My father is not a business owner. I am a 33-year-old born and raised in Yonkers. I have 13 plus years of legal background with my legal experience. I have dealt with many issues that go hand in hand with the planning board, such as I am a community member that has my community's best interest at heart. And that's awesome, and I appreciate individuals who are, from the community, who have the community's best interest at heart. I definitely do appreciate it, and so my response to her was, thank you for your clarification. I was told this by a member of the Latino community. As I said, I would like to extend an invitation, as I said, to come on anytime and discuss what it is you think you will bring to the planning board that can benefit the residents of Yonkers. I know it's a volunteer position, one that will take a good amount of your time. With that being said, what interested you in joining the planning board, and what are you looking to get done? Thank you, Freddie Vasquez. Right. So, I give everybody the opportunity. But anyway, folks, I want to welcome and help me welcome my guest tonight, the individual everyone's waiting for, former Yonkers Police Lieutenant Anthony DiMaggio. Oh, there he is. I apologize to people for not being able to make it yesterday. I was just very honest. I said, listen, I was exhausted. I had a long day. And I just want to give people my energy. And I got it now. And I also have a Red Bull here. It gives me wings. Anyway, how you doing tonight, Anthony? How's it going?
I'm good. I had a good week. How about you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just very busy. Friday especially, I had some things that like I always say. I always joke that I'm a fireman. And actually, when my daughter was attending school, when she first got into an elementary school, I won't say which one it was. I don't want to say, but many of the staff thought I was a fireman because I deal with property insurance and it's fires, and mostly that my clients have fires and stuff. And so I was giving me all this props because they thought I was a fireman, right? You guys, you first responders, man, police officers, firemen, you guys get a lot of love, man. So I was getting all this love because they thought I was a fireman. And when I should have never corrected them, because when I did, I didn't get the same love anymore.
Well, the firemen get a lot of love. Always did.
Yeah, Yonkers cops and police in general also. I mean, obviously there's that whole thing with the police, but I think for the most part, a lot of people have a lot of respect for police and stuff.
Sure.
And so I should never told them that because they were like, well, they didn't give me the same attention anyway. But I do feel like I'm a fireman because I'm always putting out fires. That's what I say I do every day. And Friday was just one of those days where there was a lot of fires I had to put out. Right. So I was exhausted. But anyway, we got you on here. Someone's really quick. I said, hi, Freddie. Just wondering, how can I reach you or Anthony outside of the podcast? You can reach me at politicwithfred@gmail.com. That's politicwithfred@gmail.com. And you can reach Anthony how? If they want to reach you, if you're okay with it.
Well, you can send me a message on Facebook under my real name, Anthony DiMaggio. You'll see a picture of me in my uniform there. So other people have done that.
Cool. There you go. And so I guess is that, for anyone, as long as it's respectful, right? No.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay it any mind if it's nonsense.
Yeah, you're good at that. So anyway, let's get started, man. Let's get right to it. A lot of people have been anticipating, your Friday night podcast. I had someone text me and saying, hey, people are waiting. It's become their Friday night routine.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Pretty good. I mean, I feel like the viewership is increasing with each passing week, and that's a good thing because we're going to start getting into some meaty stuff going ahead. I think tonight we're going to digress a little bit because there are some mischievous little elves that have to be dealt with because
right. And so you're referring to the individual that was commenting, I think, by Tasman. Possibly you think you know who it is, and so you're going to speak about that tonight, correct?
Yeah, but I was wondering, do you want to deal with this other fella first, or do you want
you start? I follow your lead. This is the people's platform, so you let me know where you want to start.
Well, I didn't want to tip off Tasman that we knew him in case he was going to make some more stupid comments. But yeah, Tasman, if you are watching tonight, we do know who you are. One of your old buddies called me the other day and brought it to my attention, some of the things that you said. I didn't really pick up on it because I didn't really care. I had actually forgotten about it. But a couple of days ago, I got a call from a buddy and said, do you think Tasman is so-and-so? And I said, well, I don't really care, but why do you think? And then we started getting into it, and I went back and I watched the podcast, things that he was saying. I said, oh, my God, how did I not figure this out right away? Yeah. So we're going to yeah, go ahead.
No, I'd say he seemed like he was trying to drop a little clues, here and there to kind of maybe give you an idea. He doesn't want everybody else to know, but you, specifically, I don't think he minded by what he was saying.
It's going to be a nice little Easter egg in this episode for all the cops watching and when we get to him. But let's deal with this other fella first.
All right, let's go. Where do you want to start?
Well, you know more about this guy than I do. I really wasn't going to address him, but, he upset a couple of people in my family, which I guess might have been his goal. He clearly seems to me to be doing work for the mayor.
And you're talking about Brian Harrod, right? Yeah, Brian Harrod. Yeah. People, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but he does the Yonkers Newswire, Yonkers Roundup, and all these bunch of pages. The guy was not originally from Yonkers, but he saw that there was a lack of information being put out there on the news and stuff. News 12 was no longer being specific to Yonkers, so he came down here and got kind of into it. And Ruros, his partner, who's his partner now, was also doing it. So they had their whole feud, and they were going at it for a while, but then they became partners. They worked it out. So, now they attack people on behalf of individuals in office. And this is why I say, and I speak on it, people say don't give it no mind, but it's part of that ecosystem of corruption. You know what I mean? And this is a tool that's used to relay false messages out. And I say, if you don't combat it with, a counter message, then it will become the reality. If that's what people hear, right? So he's now mentioning you.
Yeah, somebody had brought it to my attention, and I was like, yeah, I read it, and it was feeble-minded and grammatically atrocious, and misquoted me all over the place, and so it became pretty apparent to me pretty quickly that he was working for somebody. So I ignored it, but then one of my aunts got wind of it, and she was started texting me and calling me and saying, "Who's this guy? He needs to be told about himself." I said, "Well, just ignore him." But then he kept going, and it was like, "All right, if he's just going to keep going, then we might as well address it," you know.
Right. And that's his
Um,
goal because I mean he's mentioned my wife in some pretty nasty ways, blasted her picture, but he doesn't really do that about me. He just calls me the village idiot and that's it. But he mostly makes references to my wife because they're trying to find that vulnerable spot, that thing that's going to make you react. So I've learned to just let it be. What I find ironic is that he says that Mike Cater, he's bringing Mike Cater into this. Mike Cater
yeah,
just like completely has nothing to do with this, but he's bringing Mike Cater, the former city council president, into this and saying that he's taking advantage of a mentally disturbed individual. He's referring to you. But what's ironic about it is that it's safe to say that he may not, be all there. He lives, off government assistance. He doesn't work. This is all he does. He stays in front of his computer while we taxpayers fund him. And he's being used by certain individuals, and he's not all there, right? So it's like you're the actually one that's disturbed, that's being, used and taken advantage of, right, and exploited by elected officials. And they do that. He's not the only one. And I've seen this, and I said I used to work in a school where there were a lot of, where it was a special needs school. So, in my years experience with that, I can identify individuals that, maybe, have some, and I see there's certain individuals within Yonkers, our community, that they exploit and they have some, and I'm just like, wow, that's kind of wrong.
yeah. Well, after I kind of caught on to what he's trying to do here. He's running with the city's narrative that this Anthony DiMaggio guy is out of his mind and and he's got all these mental issues. He actually said in one of his posts that I have a history or a long history of domestic violence calls.
Right.
That's a complete fabrication. I have zero.
Well,
None.
right, and that's what he does. He spins things. He spins the
Right.
actual fact, right, and he makes it put in a way that looks negative, and it's like, if you don't watch or hear what you actually said, and you just see that, it'd be, they'll think that that's what's true.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that caught my eye when I saw that he wrote that, it was like, if I was a little bitch like John Mueller, I'd be looking to sue this guy for libel right now. But I'm not like that, so he can write whatever he wants, and
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
just dispute it on the podcast.
Yeah, yeah, I have. That's
Um,
why I don't go after, get my attorney involved and all that stuff. What I
no, I
sue
mean
people who
it's
owe me money, like I'm doing now. I've owed over 100 grand, so that's what I'll go to court for, right? But not that nonsense. But anyway, so, and again, so I don't want to give it too much time because he's really irrelevant, And as much as he says that we're irrelevant and we're nobodies, and I don't get any views, yet he talks about us constantly, right? But that's
Yeah.
what he's being
Well,
paid to
just
do.
two things real quick about him. The first one is you'll see that what he did, anybody who's been watching these podcasts, because he repeats himself over and over again that I have mental problems and this poor Anthony DiMaggio guy being abused by Mike Cater. And I have no
Right.
connection to Mike Cater
Yeah,
whatsoever.
you
And
just
that's the next thing I'm going to get into. But I would just like to tell him people watch these podcasts, and overwhelmingly the reviews that I get is that I look anything but crazy when I'm doing these podcasts. So he's in the minority opinion by plenty, when he says that. So
yeah,
I think he's kind of
yeah.
discrediting himself when he repeats it ad nauseum, clearly with an agenda. I mean, to me, it appears that he's working at the behest of the mayor, who is Mike Cater's apparently, a sworn political enemy at the moment, and I can see why. And they're trying to portray me as being dangerous and nuts and unfit, while at the same time tying me to Mike Cater. I think to hurt him. I don't think
Right.
it has anything to do with me. I think
Right.
they're
Yeah,
trying
right.
to
It's
damage him.
political. It's definitely political.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
And that's the
let me
reason
just
why they
go.
mentioned London. I'm
Okay,
sorry, not to cut you
go
up, but
ahead.
that's the reason why they mentioned a gentleman by the name of London Reyes, who has nothing to do with it because it's political.
Right.
They're concerned that he's going to run for District 3 next year against Tasha Diaz, the majority leader. So that's why they bring him up. So that tells me that the individual behind them is a gentleman by the name of Zahi Jeris, to be specific, But,
Right. Yeah. You
that's
keep saying,
just
right. So let me just go on the record real quick and clear up what my ties to the Caters are, because really all it is that I know John through my parents. Right. My parents are also longtime friends of Mike Spano, or at least were
right.
until recently.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that when you're done. I want to go ahead.
So as far as Mike Cater, I've met the guy a couple of times. I think I might have said that on a prior podcast. Okay. John, I know through my father. I've known John a long time, but not well. I've known him better in the last few years because I went to a couple of fundraisers for Mike before he was gearing up to run for re-election. I went to a couple of fundraisers for him. One on Midland Avenue on a restaurant, and another one. Oh no, that was the fundraiser that I went to was on Midland Avenue at a restaurant. John had invited my father, and I went with my father. And I met Mike there, and he seemed like a really nice guy. And we didn't really talk too much because he was busy. And then I met him another time at the wine tasting event that John holds at his house every year. Again, also, my father was invited, and I went because I do know John and his family. And that was actually pretty funny. I ended up sitting next to Matt Gallagher at that
Corporation Counsel of City of Yonkers.
And he sits there, and he has no idea who I am. I told him I was a cop. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I was just talking to your boss before." I said, "Oh," he goes, "Mueller." There's just something wrong with that guy.
You really?
Yeah, I said.
I hear that. Other people have spoken to him and they've told me things that he said. Like things like that. That just like it's like he sees it himself, but and he'll say it. It's funny that.
That's a good opportunity to clear up another mistake that Mr. Harrod made, and he kept saying in his misquotes, where he has me saying, these long rants that he takes little snippets of things that I've said on prior podcasts and he mushes them together to make it sound like incoherent rambling, which, by the way, is the exact same thing that the city's doctor did in his report. But in his misquotes of me, he says Knucklehead Smith with a TH at the end, Smith. So just to clear it up, why don't we show everybody who Knucklehead Smith is? It's Smith, Smiff. Okay? This is Knucklehead Smith. That's Commissioner Clusterfuck on the left. And on the right is a ventriloquist dummy from the 50s. The guy, the comedian, the ventriloquist, his name was Paul Winchell. You can look up him and all the videos with what was the other one's name? Jerry Mahoney was a puppet, a ventriloquist puppet, or a dummy, or whatever you call them. And this was the other one. It was a Knucklehead Smith. To me, he bears sort of a striking resemblance to John Mueller himself.
I've never heard of the ventriloquist, nothing like that. But I mean, I can see the eyebrows, maybe.
Well, the jawline, the lips.
Hairline.
Yeah.
Yeah, the jawline, yeah.
Cheekbones. The goofy demeanor. You have to watch some of the videos. But anyway, it might not be a dead ringer with other people, but to me, this is who I think of when I think of this guy. That's why I call him Knucklehead Smith.
I'm sure he's going to like this.
I get a kick out of it.
I'm sure he's going to like it a lot. I'm
sure the squirrel living between his ears is going wild right now. Oh, yeah, let's not give too much away. That's coming up.
Oh, we'll give a little preview, a little sample. Go ahead.
Just to clear it up, I have no association with Mike Cater. Nothing that I'm doing has anything to do with what Mike Cater has going on. He's got his own big axe to grind with these people. What's going on with me started long before they set up a fraudulent investigation against him. And the idea that I'm here doing Johnny Limo's bidding, which is actually what my daughter accused me of a couple of weeks ago.
I was going to say outrageous. That. So that's, because, in order for me to do this good, also the basement politics, also one thing I think that, I try to do is build relationships with as many people as possible, believe it or not. Right. And there's just certain people, obviously, I'm not going to have a relationship with, but, it is what it is. Right. But I try to have relationships with people, and, so I do, and I talk with people. And, one of the things that's being said is that you are, being, kind of influenced to do this by John Cater, right? that he's the guy that's putting the battery in your back, so to speak, right? And that's what they were saying about me also in basement politics. The Caters were behind it, and that's what Brian Harrod's trying to get at. And the Caters are not behind Freddie Vasquez. They never were. They never paid me anything. They didn't know anything about it until I started doing it. They like it, of course, because they felt that what I was saying was, true, whatever, and it was helping them as well. But that's what they say. So, I mean, is he, John, and I'm going to ask you, right, is John Cater, influencing you, behind, what you're doing, motivating you to do this?
Why don't we tell the audience a little story of how you and I linked up and started doing these podcasts, right? I don't remember who sent to a friend request on Facebook, but we ended up being friends on Facebook. You made a post one day about a job, right? Something with the fire.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I put a few, yeah.
renovations that you do, and I
Yeah.
sent you an instant message on Facebook asking about the job. And we
Oh,
started talking about it.
really? I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry. So that's for anybody who messed me. I'm sorry because people get upset. One woman was mad that I didn't respond in time. I'm like, I don't know you, lady.
Yeah, and you gave me your phone number, and we talked on the phone about the job, and I told you a little
Oh,
bit
okay.
about what was going on with me in the city, and I let you podcast and all this and that.
Oh,
And then one
yes,
day,
yes, yes, yes.
so not long after that, I said, "Hey, I got some stories to tell too. Why don't you have me on the show?"
And I said,
And that's
sure.
how it happened. So now, the day that we were going to do the first one, you announced it earlier in the day that you had a lieutenant coming on,
Right.
or a former lieutenant or whatever. And John put two and two together and realized that
I
that was
got you.
me. So he shot me a text message or called me or whatever it was and said, "Is that you? Are you going on tonight?" I said, "Yeah." So this has nothing to do with the Caters. I have my own story to tell, and Mike has his own story to tell, and John obviously knows me, and it's obviously his brother Mike. So he supports both of us, but
Right.
he's not making me do this in any way, shape, or
Right.
form.
And I believe you because the same has been said about me as well, and I get it. So I understand what's happening with that. And speaking of your family also, and you telling your story, you've mentioned this that your sister, I believe, I'm sorry, works for the commissioner or in the headquarters. I'm sorry, but I know she works for the police department, the Yonkers Police Department, and at one point was working with Mueller, correct? Correct,
Mhm.
directly with him.
She's worked in the commissioner's office, right? I mean, not in his office. He has his own office by himself,
Right,
but right outside in the sort of secondary office. She sits there. She works with two lieutenants who also
right.
work for him. So she's a civilian, but she works in his office right outside his door and
Now,
has
how,
since
how
Chuck.
she, how does she feel? I mean, how does your family feel that you've been speaking on this, especially your sister, being that she works for the police department? Is she, okay with it? Are they good with it? Do they, are they supportive of what you're doing?
Well, they've been very nervous. They know the Spanos well. They're calming down a little bit now because it's been a few podcasts, and I told them just like I told Mike Hanley. I said, this is not between our families. I know a lot of the Spanos that are not political. A lot of the younger ones, I like a lot of them. I mean, I know Vinny since I'm probably 10 years old. Used to date a cousin of mine for a long time when I was a kid. And
Vinny Spano, you're referring to city clerk, if you don't, people don't
right,
know.
right. But I told Mike Hanley, I said, messing with families is a two-way street, buddy. I'm no new jack on this job. I know a lot of things. I would go back a long way. So
And,
everybody can we just leave families out of it and we go to war amongst ourselves. That's all.
unfortunately, I've learned that, and Mike Cater will tell you as well, and the Caters will tell you, John will tell you, families are not off limit, and my
They're supposed to
wife,
be.
you would think, right?
Even the real mafia doesn't mess with families.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I was watching something. There's a show called Drink Champs. It's a podcast I like to watch here and there with hip hop artist Noriega. And he was saying that, it's a different generation or whatever. But a lot of these guys are older. And we didn't do that. We didn't go, mess with the family, the wives or the kids. We didn't speak about them, or anything like that. But it seems like some individuals here in the city of Yonkers, that's not off limits, and I've had it happen to me, my
No, it's
wife and stuff. And my wife, at first she would be like, well, why? Because she's not totally out of this. She don't care about that, And and then I get because she's such a she's so innocent, right? But she's learning now. She's growing a thick skin. It is what it is. People come up to her actually and say a lot of good things about the podcast. But you have the family, and as you mentioned, also your father was a police captain, also in Yonkers Police Department, and and I have to bring it up because people are bringing up families, or they do mention things like that. And if there's anything that's super inappropriate, I won't even bring it up. But if it's something that you don't want to answer, and I do bring it up, you could just not answer it. But again, how is your dad? Is he upset with what you're doing, or is he okay with what you're doing? Because I was told that he may be upset about you coming on the podcast.
He was at first. He's sort of come around to it, you know. Um, there's been some mixed emotions about it amongst the much older retired guys who were very old school, and they would have never thought to do something like this. But at the same time, nobody ever got railroaded the way I did. So
Right.
why would I not? When they fired me, they gave me back my rights as an American citizen. When you're a cop, you can't just go to the press and talk. You can't, it's almost like you don't have the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, these things. So when they fired me, they took a hell of a lot from me, but they also gave me back my constitutional rights. So why not exercise them?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've come around. My family has come around. Everyone else loves it.
Yeah. And Anthony, two things. I want to be fair, and because I don't want people ever say Freddie's always biased and he's always, I want to be fair. But again, I don't bring up the disrespectful stuff, things that I think are inappropriate. And also, I ask because it's important to know this stuff and to then put it out there. If this is what people are saying, right, or if that's what some people believe, then I've always believed in getting ahead of it and talking about it, right, and not shying away from it and being honest, because that's going to make you look better in the long run, or anyone who's always honest and truthful up front, right? Anytime you kind of, even if it's not, not because you're doing it for a reason where, you did something wrong, but just you maybe kind of honest, you don't want to go there, it then maybe portrays you that way. So that's why I ask these questions, because this was told to me, they said that your family may have been upset about it or whatever. And if they were, maybe, that's understandable, right? Because if they have to, maybe deal with certain things, but you shouldn't also, feel like you're doing something wrong for coming out this way and speaking on the podcast either, right? Because I support you in doing that, and really quick, I say that because I've got the same thing. And when you're dealing with certain individuals, especially like, with the city, how else do you go about it, right? How else? So
yeah, I mean, look, there's no way I can stay quiet. As you see more of the stuff that played out as the saga went on, and as it goes on these podcasts, as I get into more and more of the stuff that happened, because we've barely scratched the surface. We just started with the crime scene last week. This went on for 2 years, and that was the beginning of it.
Right.
So as you see more and more of what this absolute lunatic did in a desperate effort to cover up his initial targeting of me and covering up for Goomba, you're going to see why I have to do it. Because I'm still a cop, and he's still in charge of a lot of cops, so I have to do it.
Right.
This Brian Harrod fella, I said to him on one of the posts, I said, be careful about being John Muller's mouthpiece, or if you're not his mouthpiece, about being Spano's mouthpiece, well, as it concerns John Mueller, because you have no idea what's coming. And I do, and they do, because they have a copy of my flash drive. So if they're telling you to go out and say these things on behalf of them about me and, in defense of John Mueller, then
you're talking about Brian. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right, yeah. I'm talking about Brian. You're not, if you want to consider yourself a member of the Fourth Estate, then you have to understand that your job is to be a check on people in power, not to be their journalistic hand job. And actually, I was thinking that going forward, I'm going to refer to him. I know you have to maintain a certain level of propriety because you're the show's host and all that, but I'm here. I can have some fun. I think going forward, I'm going to refer to him as Brian Handjob, because he earned the title.
And not only I refrain from stuff like that only because I don't do it because I don't want to, kind of play that game with him, right? And because he calls me the village idiot, right? But I still say Brian Harrod, right? I don't say, whatever name I think might be funny. And I'm not, listen, you could do what you want to do. I'm not saying anything negative about you. I'm just saying that because then people will look at me also, and I'm trying to be a nice guy. Like I'm trying to really put out an image that I'm a good guy, because sometimes I get like I'm the bad guy type of image, and I'm really not, and also I don't do this for, the reasons that Brian and Yonkers Voice does it, which is really to get money, right? It's not about being journalists, right? And going out there, and that's why they're never going to check the elected officials, right? All they want is a check. That's the point. So, that's their goal, right? So I just want to make sure that people in Yonkers understand that fact, okay?
But if he's going to serve the mayor in that capacity, then I'm going to give him the nickname, because, like one guy who used to work for the courts up in White Plains once said to me when I had to go up there to testify. I was telling him how I like to, have the sides of my suit jacket sewn up and everything and look really professional. He goes, "Man, you're a cop, man. You can pop your collar and have fun, and you're not held to the same. I mean, you are held to a standard, but you're not a politician, so you can use four-letter words and stuff like that. And by the way, anybody who thinks that cops who are potty mouths should be, found unfit for duty and taken off the street. If that were the case, you'd have about 4 cops out there working, because we're all potty mouths.
That's the thing.
With each other on a podcast. We don't talk to the public like that. We don't, we're professional, but behind the scenes, we're just people. So we, if we curse, I'm not here to deceive anybody into thinking that I don't use 4-letter words. I do.
No, no,
and I
no, no.
always
That's
did.
not what I'm.
Right.
I curse a lot. Honestly, I even curse in front of my. It's funny because I curse in front of my kids, but they still know that cursing is not okay, and they don't curse, and they'll tell me, "Dad, you curse," you know. So actually, now I'm getting better because I know that they will reprimand me, my own kids. But I do. I have a potty mouth, and it's not about the, you know, it's just about like, you know, maintaining a level of integrity, right? That obviously he doesn't have, you know what I mean? And that's what it's about for me. And really quick, I just want to ask this question. Would reporting the corruption in Yonkers to the FBI website help anything? I don't know. I mean, you know,
The
FBI,
feds know. The feds know.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
corrupt too, I think. Just my opinion. But anyway, so that's enough of Mr. Handjob, as
Yeah,
you like to
sure.
call him, right? Let's move
I do
on
like to
to
call him that.
yeah,
I believe
what
in
do you want?
respecting my elders, so I may call him Mr. Handjob going forward. But
Yeah, and so and just to be fair, you know, just you know, I guess give you heads up, and to be fair, right? I'm gonna, you know, there's people are gonna come to me. I'm gonna sit with people that we're gonna talk about things. They may mention things, and again, if I feel like it's relevant or, you know, or whatever, I will ask you that, you know, and it's not anything against you, or, you know what I mean, to or that, you know, on somebody's side or anybody's side, right? Again, I want to present everything because I think that's fair. That's what I owe to the people. They should
okay.
hear, you know, everything. But again, if it's something disrespectful and that goes to anybody who wants to leave a comment, I'm not going to put that up. If it's nonsense, you know, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's go. Where do you want to start with this? Back to the story here.
Oh, Tasman.
Oh, Tasman. Let's go to Tasman. Tell me a
Yeah,
little bit
I
about
thought. Yeah,
Tasman.
Tasman. He has to be addressed because, you know, like I said, I was going to adopt a policy of not responding to these anonymous idiots who, you know, they're not anonymous. Well, they're anonymous because they're leaving fake profiles. Yeah, they're using fake profiles to leave what are essentially anonymous comments because we don't know who they're coming from. But sometimes
Right.
when they're not that bright, like this fella, they give themselves away by some of the things that they say. And it was very easy to figure out once it was brought to my attention. So since he's a person that we could have a lot of fun with, why not? Let's go ahead and do it. Give the audience a hint as to who Tasman is. Show the video from in the bar.
Video from in the bar.
We sort of
coming
gave
right
it away
up.
before by accident, but you guys remember this fella? Somebody say his name in the comments.
Yeah, this is an incident that happened in Yonkers where a woman was slammed by a Yonkers police officer in a bar, and that's who the guy who slammed her is the man who you're referring to. This is the video.
I want to see if anybody remembers his name without looking it up. Hey, do what I say. Do what I say. Hey, boom. Yeah. Yeah, that's how that guy handles things. He recently retired with a big pension. And yeah. I'll show you how it's done. Yeah, look at this idiot.
Boom.
Oh my God.
That's another guy? That was another cop that slammed her also?
No, that was
same
him. Yeah, it was just the same video played twice. You know, and
that's one more time. I gotta see
this.
He like Hulk slammed her. What do you call that? Like
yeah, he gave her the thymo suplex.
Boom.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
He taught her, that's for sure.
Well, we have a picture here that we're that you sent me. Tell me about that. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. It's, you know, played out in the media. He went to trial, and I'm still waiting. I'm not going to say his name until someone throws it up in the comments. Someone's got to remember, because this is Tasman. If you watch the last podcast, this is the goofball who's talking all kinds of shit about me, all fabricated, made up. No, she didn't lose. She won. She got $1 million and $1.25 million.
$1.25 million
in 2017. Yeah, I think she sued for $11 million and got $1.25 million. And the city admitted no wrongdoing on his part, which is part of the settlement. Yeah. So that's Wayne Simos. If no one's going to say it, I'll just say it. He and I did not like each other very much. We worked together, and usually the cause of us not liking each other too much was me constantly letting him know what a zero he is, what a mistake he is, what a guy should have never been a cop, as you can see from that video. But anyway, after he beat the case, they put him back on the street. You know, no psychological evaluation, going around body slamming old ladies. And they put him right back on the street. He ended up getting promoted a couple of years later. I think, do you have those pictures? Do you have the picture of him getting promoted?
No, I got to get that. But I want to ask you a question really quick. I
Yeah,
want to
go
say
ahead.
big thing. So he doesn't get sent to a psychiatrist. No evaluation. I mean, he just like this is like WWE slams this woman, on the floor. And I get it. She was, being non-compliant, and whatever, but I don't know. I don't think that was warranted. And that just
Right.
showed a lot of anger and aggression. I mean, something. He should have been evaluated, I think.
Well, he has the worst case of Napoleon complex you'll ever see. And so the reason he was really so hot and was trying to get at me in the last podcast is because after I got fired in November of last year, about 2 weeks later, I was sitting around and I decided, why don't I just send this voicemail out to people? So I sent that voicemail that Goomba had sent me. You want to play this game, you're going to lose it. I sent it out to about 250 cops in my phone. Now, you can only put about 20 people in each text message, in each group text message.
Wow.
So I sent out about 12 or 13 of them with a bunch of different cops in them. Now, I don't know why I included him, but I did. And he has something cute to say. Do you have that text thread? I sent it to you, didn't I? If not, I can now.
No, I didn't see a text message. You sent me a text in the email?
I believe I did. If not, I can do it now.
No,
Quickly.
I got the Knucklehead Smiths. Yes, do it now because I don't see any text.
Right,
Everything that you sent me, I pulled up. But I want to show a picture really quick here of Irma, what she looked like while you do that.
While I do this, right? Yeah.
And I mean, wow, poor woman. And she only got $1 million. Look at her face.
Yeah.
I mean, this woman is, I don't know, how old was she? I mean, probably in her 40s.
But I call him, after that incident, I call him the Granny Slayer because he just.
I mean, oh, so she was older, maybe like in his 50s, 60s?
Yeah, I mean, that was her niece that needed medical attention.
Oh, okay.
And she kept trying to interfere because she was drunk and she was concerned about her niece. And he didn't like that she wouldn't listen to him about, staying to the side and not interfering. So he decided that she needed to join her niece in needing medical attention.
Wow. And this is the guy, Wayne, right here.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that Wayne is actually a trained mixed martial artist or something to that effect.
Yeah, he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Right. That's what he was talking about when last podcast. He said, I wrecked you, son, in person.
Right.
Or something like that. Yeah, I had been invited down to the gym by its owner, Sam Margie. I have a lot of friends in the Arabic community. And I went down there just to F around and train a little bit. And Wayne was already a purple belt, which is a fairly advanced level in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think it's a 3rd or 4th belt. But I had no experience, really. I was just going and messing around. And he tapped me a few times. And he likes to, that whenever he and I would get at each other in the precinct.
Right.
That's one of the things he liked to bring up.
He got the better of you. But he's also a police officer. And you guys are somewhat, are trained. I don't know, somewhat.
Oh, he's a stone
you're trained and fighting and stuff and, bringing people down and all that. I mean,
yeah.
I used to work in a school where we used to I was a crisis intervention and we used to do TCI training, it was called, and we were taught to restrain students, right, without hurting them. And,
right.
I never understood why, and I get it. Sometimes you can't as a cop, you just can't. But even with the kids too, I mean, some of the kids were bigger than us. They were high school students, some of them, right? And again, this is a school for special needs. So, sometimes they would get upset and they would just, big kids, and we would be able to do that, bring them to the floor, restrain them, right, without hurting them. Why can't that happen with with cops and especially with this lady?
If anybody should have been able to do that, it should have been him, especially with with the woman of her size at her age. But what happened that night had nothing to do with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It had to do with his Napoleon complex
and his anger,
the fact that nobody
should have been evaluated. Seriously.
Well, he thinks, I would say so. Before you put a guy like that back on the street, you should evaluate him. But he thinks that nobody takes him seriously because he's small. That's not the
Napoleon
case.
complex,
there's a lot, right? But there's a lot of small guys on the job, and the only reason nobody takes him serious is because he's a halfwit. Now, he said something about me telling him that to his face that I was a racist or something about a movie with a black guy. I don't really.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I've gotten that about you. Not a lot.
Really?
Maybe I'd say 3 people. Yeah.
What? That I'm a racist?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you can invite them on the show anytime you want to, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll come out. But why would they
Yeah,
say
I
that
doubt it.
though? Why would they say that?
Probably because they don't like me. I mean, that's one of the things
Yeah.
that you throw at people, especially a cop, when you're trying to destroy them.
I was called a
Um,
racist too, but some people don't like me.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a powerful weapon. Now,
Right.
the only thing I ever said to this idiot was that he should have been a love stain on his parents' bed sheets, and I said that to him a few times because that would have been his best self. Now, why don't you pull up the text? I just sent them to you.
All right, let me check it out. The email. You emailed them?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, not coming up. Let me try this reset. But yeah, so go ahead. I mean, as I get them up here. See, yeah, I don't see anything.
Oh, I didn't. Wait, hold on a second. I
Yeah, I
did
don't
just
have it
send it
here.
to you. Let me double check.
But yeah, so I mean, this guy, it was in the New York Times. I had an article here. He was acquitted, right? Because he was brought up on charges, correct?
He was brought up on federal civil rights violation charges. Yeah.
Federal civil rights violation charges. He was, I mean, I don't know if he was violating her civil rights. I just think he was just violating her, period. You know what I mean? I don't, sometimes I think that, and I get it. They try to go with an angle that maybe they think that they can win in court. But I think that sometimes that dilutes and waters down, the claim of, civil rights and stuff like that. I think he was just like you said, a Napoleon complex, someone that should have been evaluated, not be on the street. He was doing this jiu-jitsu stuff, he thought he was hot stuff, and this woman, I'm going to show you. You know what I mean? Especially in front of his fellow officers, right? He doesn't want
Well,
to
there's
look
a lot
bad.
of cops who know jujitsu on the job. Hello, you still
Yeah,
there?
yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, there's a lot of cops on the job who know jujitsu, and a lot of them are real badasses, but they don't use it on people
Right. No, I
very
mean,
often because
and they
Bobby
should know. Some
Oscalillo is a
things
good
should.
example. Bobby Oscalillo was a canine cop. He's even shorter than Wayne Simos is, and he's a killer. But he's a great guy, and
Right.
you
He's
never hear boo
confident.
from this guy. Yeah, right.
He's confident himself. Let me check again now. See if that
Yeah,
came in there.
I did. I think I just sent him to the right because you have two inboxes.
I got it. Yep, I got it here.
Right now, just before one, there are a couple of curse words in here, but we're all adults here. I don't think there are any children watching the podcast called Basement Politics on a Saturday night. So,
Hey, man, I got a lot of different fans nowadays, man.
yeah, it's not that big.
He should have been fired. Yeah, absolutely. Yet they fire Anthony DiMaggio, right? Could you believe that? That's messed up. So let's take a look at these text
This is why he's
messages
so
here.
hot about me. This is why he
goodness.
felt the need to jump in last week. He must have heard about the podcast and he decided he was going to make a fake name. So this was in December of last year. Now, if you see, you see those first three things at the top on the left. You want to play this game, you're going to lose it. I'm paraphrasing what Goomba said to me in the voicemail. Then underneath that, there's a picture of my termination order. Then underneath that, there's the actual voicemail itself so that people can listen to it. All right. Now, there was a lot of buzz going around after I sent this text out to 250
Okay,
people.
can I read? You want to play this game? You're gonna lose it. I tell you right now. Louis was right. I lost. Wayne replies, "I like in baseball. You win some, you lose some."
Right. So he decided to make a cute comment, which basically amounted to, "Why don't you go F yourself? Nobody cares that you got fired." That's the way I took that little comment.
Right. And why is this one like in pink where it says, "And just keep a cool head"?
Because that's another person whose name I decided to redact.
I also there was more people in this this
yeah, you see the black line? That's where the guy's name is. I decided that I wasn't going to say who that was publicly.
And so and it says here also, now you're mentioning the agreement that they were wanting you to sign, but obviously you don't want to sign it because you didn't want to give up your right to sue, right? As you said that they're demanding that I sign an outrageous settlement agreement. I have no interest. Time to just move on to the next thing. I'm just trying to dispel some outrageous rumors that I've heard. I was fired because I pissed off the commissioner's girlfriend and because I refused to sign away my right to sue him. Plain and simple, no other reason.
Right. So that was me addressing the guy in the pink who made that comment, and then I go back to Wayne. Now this is where it gets fun on the bottom.
Imagine the irony. If I had power bombed a helpless old drunk lady face first onto a marble floor on video and cried like a little, I'm not going to say that word, C word, about it on News 12, I'd be back to work and would probably be a chief by now. Who can figure out the YPD? Odd place. You are
Right.
correct. Threatening to kill your child's mother, and the kids is so macho, so DiMaggio.
Which didn't happen at all. But
I need a house painter and a shoe cobbler if you need some work. Enjoy retirement. So he's trying, I guess he's trying to poke at the fact that you're gonna not, you know, you don't have the job anymore.
right.
And I guess you do home repairs and stuff like that. Which is, I mean, I don't understand why people do things like that. You know what I mean?
Because he's a moron.
Yeah, I know. Like that's a bad thing. You know, nobody threatened to kill anybody. Go for speech therapy, you over achieving idiot. So is that a no on the job? If you change your mind, let me know. No, thanks, pal. I already have two new ones, and my new bosses don't have to bury me indoors because my ineptitude and Napoleon complexes are a massive liability. Well, as long as you know your shortcomings, hopefully you can hold on to this job. Okay, pleasure speaking with you, Sal. Anthony.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Have a good night.
No, he loves to bring up my father because my father was the commanding officer of the 4th precinct where he was assigned on the night that happened.
Right.
That happened in a bar right across from Schlobomb. You know, you go down Palisade Avenue, down the hill. On the right, when you get to the light, right at Palisade and Elm, there's
it's that
a bar
pizza
right
stop
there.
too. Yeah.
I don't think that bar is still there anymore, but that's
no,
where it
I
happened.
don't think so. Yeah, it's closed.
Right.
Dang.
And that's, you know, and my father, I remember when this, I would think I was still in the academy when it happened, I think. But by the time he got arrested for it, and it was all over the news, I remember I was hanging out in my father's living room one day, and I was half asleep. I was like dozing in and out, and he came in. My father did, and he goes, "Did you see the news?" It was like 6 o'clock at night. He goes, "Did you see the news? News 12?" I said, "No. Why? What happened?" He goes like this. He goes, because Simos was, I mean, and Edmund Harton, the commissioner at the time, actually said that he went on the record later with News 12 and saying, "You guys are playing it like ad nauseum, almost in a deliberate attempt to taint the jury pool."
Right.
They were playing it so much. When I turned the TV on to see what he was talking about, they were playing it. And when I saw it, I said, "Oh my God, who's that?" He goes, "Oh my God." He tells me all about Simos, this idiot.
And what year was this? When did this happen?
I believe it happened in 2007, and he went on trial for it in around 2009.
Okay.
So the big thing with, Keith Olsen, they provided him the union's attorney, Andy Quinn, who's, a great lawyer. He has a reputation as a great lawyer. Even though, from what I understand, Sussman keeps smacking him around in these cases that he has with the Olsenettes.
Yeah, he knows a lot, Sussman. That's why people go to him. Michael Sussman, civil rights. Now, I was going to ask you, how much support did he get from the PBA?
He got a lot, and that's what I was about to talk about. So they provided him an attorney in Andy Quinn, who ended up getting him off. Somehow, Andy Quinn was able to convince a federal jury that he did not mean to harm Irma Marquez when he lifted her up in the air and power bombed her like the Ultimate Warrior, face first into a marble floor. That's how good of a lawyer he is. I don't know.
He was just trying to put it to bed.
Yeah, I mean, he was just trying to get her to stop resisting arrest or whatever it was. What he was doing, I have no idea.
He just wanted to lay her down. She was tired.
But hey, that's a hell of a lawyer. I mean, if you could look at that video and convince a jury that he didn't mean to hurt her.
I bet he got a lot of business after this. After that trial,
I never put my hands on my daughter's mother. All I did was, curse at her in person and text message.
So why would they say that
to me? And
because I've heard this before, that you threatened to kill the mother of your child.
I have never threatened to kill the mother of my child. Total horse shit.
Completely. And there's nowhere they would be able to say, "Hey, look, I could show you." Boom. Here's text message.
What I'm going to do as we move forward in this podcast is I'm going to send you the entire 200-page bait stamped file that the doctor has on me. It includes the report. It includes everything that the department wanted to show him about me when they were trying to derail my career. You look through that file and you tell me where I threatened to kill my daughter's mother. Now, there was some other
just
things
anywhere in
the
text messages somewhere, or people overheard you or something,
Don't you think if I had threatened to kill her, she would have got to family court or somebody, the department, way before she did, which was only like 4 days after her entire chain of command wants my head on a platter because I made a stink about them. Like, I mean, when you see the timeline of events, you're going to see very quickly that none of this passes the smell test, as we like to say.
Right.
It doesn't pass the smell test. Something's going on here. It's pretty obvious.
Right.
And again, we've
Well, I just mentioned that
surface.
because, I've heard that, and I know that, you said that was one of the things that they tried to, pin you as someone who was, domestic violence, domestic abuser, stuff like that. But I often say that, well, I've been saying this actually recently about the tactics used, and they're kind of being recycled. I see now as I look back to what happened to other people, like with the pornography, where they accused a superintendent, a former superintendent, was accused of watching porn while at work, and charging the city taxpayers to the tune of almost $800 in porn, which for one, that was my first thing. Wait a minute. That's free porn everywhere. Why would anyone charge or pay for porn when you could get it free? You know what I'm saying? That makes no sense right there, especially if you're at work, why do that? So that was the big thing to me. And so they did that to me, right? Try to say something with child pornography and whatever. And then so also, with London Ray's, they try to accuse him of domestic abuse, just like with you. They're accusing you of domestic abuse. So that's like the tactic.
If they're going to set me up as some kind of a domestic, see, the whole idea was to destroy my career, to get the message out to everybody else that was watching, that when a guy like Goombach calls you and wants to yell at you, you answer the phone and you take your medicine. Okay? Right. If the detectives want to shake-hand a job, that's what they're going to do, because they have all the lobbying power with the third floor. And we know what the rules are. We don't care. We have our own rules. And don't try to enforce the rules that we don't like, because look what we did to Anthony DiMaggio. We'll do the same thing to you. That's the idea. Now, when they're trying to when they're trying to set you up to be a domestic offender, at the very least, they're going to have to say that you threatened to kill your daughter's mother. I mean, if you didn't do at least that, then how much of a domestic offender are you? There's no violence. There's no criminal mischief, which means breaking people's things. Those are the two most common things that you arrest people for when it comes to domestics: either violence or breaking their shit. And there was none of that. So at the very least, well, I must have at least threatened to kill her, right? No.
Yeah, that's like when they have filed some false EPS. They said that I break everything in the house, and so when they came, nothing was broken. So that was like one of the, and actually the CBS worker like, wow, it's so beautiful, the home. And they shouldn't even look through the entire house. I like, sure you don't want to look through everything? That's what you got. Nah.
And remember that the timeline of events is going to bear that out. The timeline of events is going to bear out the fact that she wanted no part of this, and that they pressured her to do it by saying, "Hey, look, your career or his doesn't matter to us." And she, being a person in no position to be able to deal with this kind of a situation, the way I've dealt with it, the way I'm dealing with it now, she almost had no choice. I mean, she did, but she didn't really. I don't blame her. You know what I mean? I don't blame her. And it's going to turn around. It's going to be all right. I'm telling you, one way or another, it's going to turn around.
But that goes back to what we were saying, how, the wives or the family are not off limits. The fact that they put her into that, in the middle of that, of trying to take, you out of your job. That just goes to show how far they would go, and just people that are vicious and nasty do that. And they did, done that to my wife, even with the CPS case too. They went after her also and me. Like, I'm like, wait a minute. So, but but you got to tell your story, and I appreciate you coming on here, because that's why I talk about it. That's why I don't hide from it. And that's why I say you can't hide from these things. You have to talk about it, especially, if you're innocent, because anything else. But I want to see about playing. Do you want to play this video where he's, he was acquitted and he's out there talking on News 12? Want to show that?
Oh yeah. This is what I was talking about in the video. Him crying like a little C word.
London Ray's is an outstanding individual. Played for him on the Yonkers Bulls back in 2005. Yeah, make sure you vote for him for District 3. This is the video. This is Wayne Simos. How you say his name?
Simos. Yeah, this is him saying that he never meant for any of this to happen.
Yeah, here we go.
I'd like to thank my lawyers, my wife, all 600 guys that I work with,
excluding me,
Jeremy, the judge, and everybody else, all the guards that you guys put me through. I never meant any of this to happen. I feel bad for Miss Marquez. 9 years on this job, I did my job. I held my head high. Thank you.
And the Academy Award goes to former Yonkers police officer Wayne Simos for his
role head pretty high.
Body slam.
I was going to say he held his head pretty high. You know what else he held pretty high for a few seconds? Miss Marquez, before he dumped her face first into a floor.
That was not even a second. That was messed up. That's crazy. I would be, if I was like her husband or her son or something like that, I would be so mad. I would want to go fight this guy, And it's sad. And this is why I say you have to come out here and speak, on this platform, on this podcast, because you can't do that, right? You're going to forget it, it'll be over for you. So this is the way you do it. This is the way you get back, Anthony. And there's nothing wrong with that, There's nothing wrong with that. That's like that whole snitching crap thing.
That you will never hear of. You have never seen or will ever see Anthony DiMaggio do anything even close to that.
I witnessed cops get left home after abusing their wife just because he was a couple days from retirement. Yonkers police literally cover up domestic violent cops. There's a lot of things that get covered up here. One of the things someone was mentioning was a lot of the overdoses and stuff in bodies that they're just finding everywhere, and people who are dying of overdoses here in Yonkers. They found one actually over there. Where they're doing the development for the senior home. Where they have, guys, the developer, the contractor digging the dirt, and they found the body there.
Really?
The day after they did the ceremony, the groundbreaking ceremony there.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, tell me about that video. I mean, it's crying.
Well, that's what I was referring to in the text. I was kind of goofing on him. He's such an easy target that it's almost not fair. But if he wants to make a cute comment about me getting fired, and he can't help himself. I was talking to a detective that I know after that, and I said, this fucking guy, he can't help himself. Why does he have to make a comment like that? I'm clearly just trying to, disseminate a little information about why I'm really getting fired here. But he can't help himself. He's got to jump in. He doesn't like my father because I guess he felt like my father didn't do enough for him. That was the thinking, in the pre-Chucky era, was if your bosses didn't cover up all of your bullshit, then they weren't good bosses. Then they didn't deserve respect. That's all changed. Like I said, the post-Chucky era is completely different. But he's a pre-Chucky cop. He would have never got hired after Chucky Gardner, because one of the first things Chucky did when he came in was he made a rule where your IQ has to be higher than your age in order to be a cop. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna be like, really? They got an IQ requirement? I was gonna believe it too.
No, I do have some material lined up. I've been gathering some information. I have a lot of information about cops who did fail psychological evaluations and how their careers played out. None of them lost their jobs. Some of them were carried on sick leave for a decade.
What?
Some of them were working other jobs while they were out getting paid. I mean,
on sick leave for a decade. What do you mean?
When I tell you that, because one of the great things that we have in our contract is we have unlimited sick leave. Now, most people don't abuse it.
And someone was on sick leave for 10 years.
That's the information that I have, that they were out and getting paid for a lot of years because of a psychological disability. I'm gathering more information on that case, but there are also others. You see, I'm far from the first cop to be accused of, domestic harassment or whatever it is that they're accusing me of, harassment or mistreating my daughter's mother, who they suddenly turned into a victim, even though she's hell on wheels and everybody who knows her knows it. And I mean,
we got to give a little more to women. Women are some tough. They're tough, man.
Well, my daughter's mother is tough, and like I said, I love her. She gave me my daughter, and she and I. And one of the things I said to Justin Barbado,
I'm attracted to that sometimes. The feistiness. I don't know. Maybe it's part of why I married my wife. She is a little feisty. People might not know, but she can be feisty. I like it though.
But look, my daughter's mother, tough. Born and raised in the South Bronx in a bad neighborhood, so she's very tough.
Right. And she's Puerto Rican, right?
She's Puerto Rican, right? My daughter's half Puerto Rican.
So you're not a racist?
No, I'm not a racist. And it's I'll guarantee you some of the people saying it about me are people who I can tell you stories about that will make your head spin. I don't know who they are.
I'm sure.
If I ever find out, they should watch out.
I'm sure.
Playing that card with me.
For a department that does extensive background checks to its employees, they sure hire a lot of questionable people. That is correct. And I was talking about, the incidents that happened very recently within a short amount of time involving city employees. And the reason why is because they don't vet them, because many of them are friends and family connections, right? So they're going to hire them anyway.
A certain high-ranking person in the city government here in Yonkers just recently admitted to me the existence of the Friends and Family Network in a text message. Maybe we'll get to that at some point in these podcasts. That'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say is I'm gonna give you plenty of examples of things that have happened with people where they either failed the psychological evaluation and were carried, or ended up working on a desk, which is usually what happens. Or I'm going to give you examples of other cases like this Simo's idiot who should have been sent for a psychological evaluation and should have failed and should have been gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
After that, absolutely.
Now, and you're going to see, because remember when Knucklehead Smith was emailing you using a fake profile and he was saying, "Oh,
well, someone was emailing me. I don't want to say it's him just because I don't know, but
I'm sure
that's who
that's what he does.
Right.
That's what he does, and I'm going to tell you stories that make you realize that was probably him as we go along.
And I'm answering when you say I'm answering you when you say Knucklehead Smith. Right? It's funny. Like I already know who you're talking about. Every time you use these names, it's funny.
Smith with a double F.
Well, Smith. Smith.
Right. And so what he wants you to do is he wants you to see all the things that. Oh, look what he said to his daughter's mother in 2014, and look what he said to her in 2017. And I'm going to show you over the course of one podcast. I'm going to show you in depth how they turn somebody into a domestic offender, because it's something that unfortunately, when I was a younger cop, I used to see some of the older cops do with complainants, like where there really wasn't much there, but for some reason, the cop maybe knew who the guy was and didn't like him, and there would be some coaching that went on. Now, and it's been a lot of years since I've seen things like that, but it's very easy to do. And I'm probably gonna spend a whole podcast going over how it's done, and it's what they did with me, because like I said, they're cops, and the Olsenettes are crooked cops, so they're expert at this stuff.
Now, would they do this to people? People in residents of the city. They would coach their wives to accused, who
a lot of times
for that.
A lot of times, it's just a matter of. I'm going to say the woman, even though I've seen domestic situations where it is a man complaining about a woman.
I've seen that too. That's why we say you never know.
Yeah, 95% of the time it's the other way around. So for the
Right.
sake of simplicity, I'm just going to say the woman and the man. So a lot of times a woman will want to, Regina, hey, Reg. A lot of times a woman will want to get an order of protection or press charges or something, and she doesn't really know what to say in the deposition. And there's language that the courts look for in the woman's deposition that if it's not there, they won't really act on the situation. So I'm going to talk more about that in depth when we maybe do a whole podcast about that. And the guys out there who have been involved in domestic situations, or the women, anybody who just wants to know how this stuff works should tune into that podcast, and we'll announce ahead of time which one is going to be.
And that's important because I'm sorry not to cut it, but that's important because you want to make sure that you do act on it, right? You know what I mean? And you don't want them to, maybe not put in a way that they won't act on it, and then something could happen because they didn't act on it, right? So that's important.
Especially in cases where it's not going to be handled in the criminal court, it's going to be handled in the family court instead as a non-criminal matter. What the woman writes in the deposition is very, very important. There has to be, as I call them, the magic words, but we'll get into that at a later time. And this is how they set me up. Again, she didn't want any part of it. I know for a fact that she didn't. But they put the screws to her. They offered her the carrot or the stick, and being in her position, I always defend. It's funny. I'm always defending her to people. People on the job are like, how the F could she do that?
I mean, I think that a little bit too, but I don't want to. Listen, I'm not in that situation. So, but from the outside looking in, you're gonna think that like, dang, how but I come from the hood, you know what I mean? And oftentimes, when two people have a child and it doesn't work out, they have a tumultuous relationship. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people in my family be ready to kill each other.
That's what I'm saying.
Baby mama.
So, Mueller wants you to look at some of the text messages that they pulled out of her phone, and for you to think. And by the way, I'm going to send you a lot of those. They're in the doctor's file.
My condolences to your friend Gab. I'm sorry. I said I'm RIP to my YFD buddy, whose superiors knew was dealing with substance abuse, and they didn't get him help he needed. He ended up being found dead at home. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. And was that recently? And that seems to be an issue that seems to be constantly.
That may be a retired Yonkers detective's son that I heard about.
My condolences. They don't want no one to know about it. They don't really want people to know that that's really happening a lot. It's crazy. And so as a police officer, former lieutenant, is that something you've seen before where they say, hey, this is going on. Let's kind of keep this hush hush. We don't want the public to know.
I I know there was one guy, and he's a guy that I like, so I don't really want to throw him under a bus because this was a lot of years ago. He was a guy that failed the drug test,
Right.
and usually the way the department handles those situations is that if you secretly have a drug problem and you come forth and say, "I have a drug problem, I want to get help for it," they won't fire you. They'll send you to the farm.
Right.
But if
Yeah,
you
I've
don't
heard
say
about that.
anything and you get a random drug test and you pop dirty, you're gone immediately. You know, because you didn't come forth for help, you got caught. So they fire you immediately. Now there was this one fella who was using drugs, and I guess he got caught. He failed the drug test, but because he had uh, a big time connection with City Hall, I think they're talking about the deceased fella, the firefighter.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, not right. So now the guy I'm talking about, he failed the drug test, but because he had a major connection to City Hall, he got a pass. And a lot of people weren't happy about it because there were a lot of really good guys on this job, on the YPD, who had drug problems, and they were otherwise really good guys, but they got caught and they got fired, no mercy. And a lot of people didn't like that he got a pass, not because they didn't like him. It's just, enforce the rules fairly. Now that was a
Well,
long
shouldn't
time
they have
ago.
a no? I'm sorry. Shouldn't they have a no zero tolerance policy so that way it's just fair across the board, right? Just that's it. I mean,
Not
right.
depends on who you
Oh,
are.
so
Like
they do
everything
have the
else.
policy. It's just that they,
Yeah,
kind of,
they made an exception. Right.
exercise at their their pleasure, their leisure.
Right. Now that was a lot of years ago. He's a pretty good guy, and he cleaned up and he's done well for himself within the department. So I don't
Yeah.
really feel the need to throw him under the bus. But
And I don't want, I want. I'm sorry, really, just quickly. I want to make it
Yeah.
very clear that if someone's suffering from substance abuse and stuff like that, I don't want to make it seem like we're criminalizing them or making them bad people and stuff like that. No, these are people or individuals that need some help and they're struggling with something. My sister passed away of a drug overdose. Also, she got a fake whatever, the fentanyl stuff. So I have
I'm sorry.
yeah, thank you. I have a personal connection to that. So just to let people out there know, no, don't judge people like that need help. We should definitely help them, and we really gotta be adamant about that help. I know they gotta want to help themselves too, but you have to be adamant because they could end up, God forbid, dead. So it's a big problem, man. Here, it's a big problem. So.
I know a lot of people. Who have passed away from drug problems.
Yeah.
A lot of people. And
you didn't see that before. I mean, when I was growing up, a lot of people weren't doing drugs or crack and stuff like that. I mean, you did see, I guess there was this whole heroin, but when I was growing up, I didn't. So when my sister passed away, I didn't really expect that because, I knew a lot of people in my family had done drugs and they all lived, they died from other stuff, so I didn't, it was crazy, man. But
yeah. So
anyway, so
the point I want to go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just say, go ahead, just let this wrap it up here. We're over an hour and stuff. If there's anything that you want to mention real quick before we get up out of here.
The point I want to crystallize, and I'm gonna go into this with examples of other people with the psychological stuff. My psychological evaluation was not an evaluation at all. It was a total hatchet job. I'm going to prove that to you. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to show you examples with other people, and I want everybody to know that to be fired for the nonsense that was going on with me and my daughter's mother, Regina's daughter.
What's that?
A friend of mine that I grew up with died about 10 years ago with drug overdose.
Regina, your daughter, her daughter?
Regina's daughter, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Regina. My condolences. I know, yes. Sorry.
So it's absolutely ludicrous to think that I got fired because of verbal combativeness with my daughter's mother. It's completely outrageous. Right? I got fired for one reason and for one reason only, because that's the second best option on the city's flow chart when they're trying to prevent a lawsuit. The first best option is to have a doctor fail you, right? See, when they know that you have them by the balls, as we say, right, with all the facts of the case, they have a serious problem because you have all these rights that legislators have given you to seek judicial scrutiny of the situation. That's a big problem for people like the Spanos who like to target people, and they like to hire morons like John Mueller who like to target people himself. So the fact that you have all these rights is an enormous problem. So they want those rights back from you. You have to give them back in writing. How are they going to get you to do that? Well, what they have to do is they have to hold your career hostage. And in order to do that, they have to have one of the doctors on their payroll give them a reason to take you off of the payroll and to hold your career hostage. And now they're trying to get you to the table and say, you want your career back? You're going to give us those rights back. Because if this ever gets anywhere near a courtroom, it's going to be catastrophic for our political brand. We appointed this idiot. We don't want to get found out. So you have to give us those rights back in writing, and you're not going to get your career back until you do. If you don't, we're just going to fire you and make it tough for you to pay attorneys. That's our second best option. Okay? And I'm going to explain. I just summed it up real quick and fast.
Really quick, I want to say, I know I mentioned something to you, you didn't want to mention it, but I'm thinking about that. And I said, I wonder if that's just a game, to, again, try to, remove your rights.
It's a lawsuit prevention strategy.
Right. Exactly. That's what I mean.
That's what it is. Firing you is actually firing you wrongfully. Wrongful termination is actually a lawsuit prevention strategy. Because when you're already wiped out on the facts, you might as well fire him wrongfully, and at least he's not getting paid.
Right.
And it makes him unattractive to attorneys. Now, despite their best efforts, I do have an attorney ready to go. There are strategic reasons why we haven't pulled the trigger yet, and I'm about to let you in on what one of those is.
Well, we're going to go all the way through the court case and everything with it. This might be like a 2-year thing,
I have a little Easter egg from my buddy Mike Hanley. I just want to let him. I want to let him know something. So I'm going to turn my Bluetooth device off.
Really quick, before you do that, can you answer this? Can you see an outside doctor to prove their doctor was corrupt or wrong?
Statutorily, you can. In practice, it's very difficult, almost impossible to do because they're all playing ball in the same league. Even if they don't have a contract with the city, they're all. The shrinks are managerial assets. So if another doctor steps in, now you would think that if a doctor on the outside stepped in and saw what was going on, that I was clearly being retaliated against and that there's really not a whole lot wrong with me. You would think that what he would do was step in and say that and write a report saying that and let me go back to work. In fact, what happens is the exact opposite. Because once they see that management has a lot to lose by you going back to work and getting back on the payroll, they run for the hills because they don't want to be the ones to do it. Because if they do it, a phone call is going to be made and that guy's going to get blacklisted.
Right.
They make money off of police administrations, off of the city. Even if it's not the city of Yonkers. Like if I go to a doctor up in Buffalo,
Right. Any police department, right? Yeah.
Right. So what's going to happen is Lenny and Johnny Spano, one of the two real police commissioners of the Yonkers Police Department, is going to call up there and say to the police department up there and say, this guy that you've been using up in Buffalo got us sued. We got to stick together, cut him off.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
And I'm going to give an example too, the pandemic when, people were saying, why aren't the doctors saying the truth? Because there were doctors that were speaking out, but then they started getting fired, threats of lawsuits, and blackballed that they wouldn't be able to go to work at other hospitals. So they just started being quiet. So that's what happens, So
the psychological route has a built-in backwater valve for all of the plumbers out there who know what a backwater valve is. It means the water flows one way. It will never come back because there's a valve, a flap built in to keep the water from backflowing. So that's why they like the psychological route. They'll never have to pay the price for it. But they will, because I know how to do it. Now,
so go ahead. You want to say something real quick? You want to leave?
So Mike Hanley, as the union president, is a total sellout. He still has a month left to do something for me if he's going to do it. And then it's going to be game time. So let me just let Mike hear a little. So I'm going to turn my Bluetooth device off. Let me know if this comes over, because once I turn off the Bluetooth device, you should be hearing things through my webcam. So hold on a second.
Sure. And for people who don't know, Mike Hanley is the I was gonna say the president. Who's Mike Hanley? Who's Mike Hanley? I forget.
Mike Hanley. He's the CLSA president.
I knew he was a. Yeah. That's why I got confused. Yes, he is the union president, but for CSLA, not the PBA, which is Keith Olson.
Tell me if this comes over clearly.
No, I can't. Oh, there you go. Yes.
Are you recording me? No.
Yes. That come over clearly?
Yes.
What'd he say?
You're recording me or something to that effect? Yeah.
I recorded every conversation I had with that idiot. So he's going to have some explaining to do as to why the union did nothing for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? When this lawsuit drops, it's going to be epic. It's going to be precedent setting, and he's going to be right at the heart of it.
Yeah, they did absolutely nothing for you. And someone had mentioned the DPW worker that killed the 16-year-old kid when he was driving drunk. The the union there, I heard, was ready to go to bat for him and stuff to get his job back or whatever. This was before he was actually fired and stuff. And they were actually, doing things for him to help him out already. And he killed a kid, 16-year-old kid. And they did nothing for you, your union. That's crazy.
Right. Right. And well, look, unions are obligated to do that. You know, even if you are dead wrong,
Right.
which I'm not in this situation. See, Mike Hanley exists for the sole purpose of protecting the rights that he's pushing me to sign back over to the city. It's outrageous because he wants some prize at the end of his tenure. You know? Look.
All that material, I don't see a conspiracy.
Let's hear it again.
All that material, I don't see a conspiracy.
So he's saying something about all the material. I don't see a conspiracy.
I showed,
So
I
basically,
gave him a copy of my flash drive.
he's telling you that he doesn't see a conspiracy. You're trying to say, hey, listen, this was a setup. These guys retaliated on me. They set me up with this psychiatrist and all that. And he's just says, I don't see it. He's just basically denying anything being, I don't see it, like Stevie Wonder. I don't see it. You know, Ray Charles, I don't see it.
Now, even Simos, who's using this Tasman name, and he's trying
he didn't comment, by the way. No Tasman comment today.
No, you probably won't see him again. If he does, it'll be under a fake name. But even he, who's basically trying to destroy me, throwing every accusation under the sun against me last week, even he said at one point, do you remember? I have no doubt that they're setting him up. Right? I have no doubt that they're messing with him.
Right.
So it's clear as day. And Mike Hanley going on the record after me having given him a copy of the flash drive that we're now getting into. And he says he's seen all of it and read all of it and doesn't see a conspiracy. He's going to have a lot of questions to answer because everyone else does see a conspiracy. Everybody else knows what's going on.
And, you know, and I mentioned this to somebody. I was talking to you about you to someone. And I said, well, John Mueller at one point said some very good things about him when you sought out to be part of the housing unit back in the day. And he gave you a recommendation and he said really good things about you. I mean, you know, completely opposite of what's now being said.
Why don't we close with that?
And he recommended you to that unit.
Why don't we close with that? Do you have that document? You can pull it up. If not, I can.
Yeah, let me see. No, I mean, I should have it here. I'll pull it up real quick. So tell me a little bit about that while I pull it up. They'll tell people about that. I know about it, but
yeah.
What was that about? You were wanting to get into the housing unit.
Yeah. So I went back to school to Fordham University. I enrolled for the spring 2013 semester. And the housing unit was basically just a patrol unit, but it had a friendlier chart. You work 3 days on and 3 days off. Longer days, 10-hour days. You work 3 days on and then 3 days off. It was a 6-day cycle, so everybody worked weekends. But it was a schedule that was more conducive to me wanting to dedicate my time to my studies at Fordham University. So I put in for the housing unit, and I was in the 4th precinct working under Knucklehead Smith, and I told him I wanted to go to the housing unit, so he wrote me up a nice recommendation.
Yep, and here it is, right?
All right, let's see it.
And it says, I don't know if you want me to read the whole thing or just the bottom here. I'll read the whole thing. Attached is a transfer request submitted to me by Police Officer DiMaggio for consideration for the housing unit. Police Officer DiMaggio was hired in January of 2007 and has worked in both the 3rd and 4th precincts. In my personal experience interacting with Police Officer DiMaggio as commanding officer of the 4th precinct, I have found him to be an outstanding police officer with many valuable traits that would make him an excellent choice for this assignment. He is proactive, a trait that would serve the housing unit well. It should be noted that earlier in the year, I personally sought him out to potentially fill a new foot post slated to begin January of 2013. He was my choice for the post for many of the same reasons that he would be a valuable addition to the housing unit. He is intelligent, methodical, and can operate with minimum level of supervision. As much as I endorse his request. As such, I endorse his request. So, I mean, that was a good letter. I mean, this is the former police commissioner of the Yonkers Police Department saying you're an outstanding officer.
That's what John Mueller really thinks of Anthony DiMaggio.
Right.
Not this other nonsense in the aftermath of me refusing to answer the phone for his buddy, Goomba.
That's where you went wrong. You're no longer an outstanding officer. You're no longer intelligent, and he's not going to recommend you for anything other than termination. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. My guest, Anthony DiMaggio. The most requested guest. I mean, really, like people really enjoyed this interview. And depending on who you ask, you know what I'm saying? Because some people would say that, people say they're making fun of you, actually. They're watching to laugh at you, right?
Well,
that's what I heard. I'm going to just keep it honest. I'm going to keep it honest.
For long, brother.
I don't think that's the case, though. And believe it or not, I even showed some proof that that's not the case, right? And I showed that a text message that I got, and I think I want to show that real quick because it just says it all about you, man, and about what you're doing and about this podcast and what people actually feel about you. So I wanted to show it. I got that yesterday night when we didn't go on, and again, I apologize to people. People were looking forward to it, man. That's what I'm saying. You are the most requested guest. People look forward to it. They a routine. You've become a routine, a Friday night routine for people. They enjoy coming on Friday night at 8 when we do this podcast and watching. So here, podcast. I think a lot of people waiting for that podcast tonight. LOL. Then I was asleep. I didn't even answer. Good morning. I go, why do you say that? They say a few people told me that it's their Friday night routine. I look forward to it as well. So there you have it, folks.
There's a lot more to come.
And there you have it to those individuals who don't believe that people actually enjoy what you're saying. They want to hear what you're saying and, and support you, right? They support you. So, yes, thank you. Oh, thank you, Regina, for sharing that with me. Thank you. I appreciate that, right? How responsive are you, Freddie and Anthony, to emails? I don't know. Email us and you'll find out. Some people might say I'm not the best, but I do. If you email my office, you'll get a quick response because someone's actively watching them, right? But but you can email me and I'll look out for it now that you made it a point, right, to respond quickly. But anyway, folks, thank you very much. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Anthony DiMaggio, I should say. Basement Politics. We'll definitely be on next Friday, unless it's a dire emergency, but we'll definitely be on at 8.
We digress this week. So next week we get back into everything that followed after the crime scene. There were some people that needed to be dealt with this week. So next week we'll get back on point.
Definitely, because I want to, I think we should definitely, and I think maybe you're going to be doing that, get into that psychiatrist thing a little bit more. And there may be people that are just now tuning in, to the interview. So maybe we can go back a little bit on that because that's what they're ultimately going to hang their hat on, or they're hanging their hat on, right? That your evaluation wasn't good.
Well, it's a fraud, and we're going to go into the reasons why it's a fraud. I have all of them boxed off in the report. I did a lot of work on it. I didn't edit it, but I circled things off and made notes and everything like that. I'm going to explain to you some of the things that he says in it, how some of them are cover-ups. There's a lot of misquotes. I'm going to send you the text messages that he actually quoted from, and you can match up what I really said with what he quotes me as saying. It's a fraud. It's a disaster. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. But that's still probably a few podcasts away because there's a lot to come before that. So,
well, night. Thank you. Good night, Regina. I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you. Yeah, no, I definitely look forward to it. It's interesting. And someone said, Anthony, you should write a book on this. And that may come one day as well.
I'm way ahead of you, Teresa. I'm way ahead of you.
Anyway, folks, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us tonight. Anthony, thank you for coming on, man. Have a good
All right, Fred.
night. Have a good rest of the week. I'll see you on Friday. Take care.
Take care.
Folks, that was Anthony DiMaggio. Our interview, part 8 of the series that just turned into a series. I'm sorry to hear about your sister, Freddie. Thank you. I appreciate that, Regina. That was, something that was very hard for me, my entire family, but very hard for me because my sister and I were 9 years apart. So, I almost kind of like, my mother was a single mom with 2 kids and, and she needed my help, right? I was a latchkey kid. I would go home and, my own kid. I was already like 9 years old. 10 years old, staying home alone. And literally at 9 years old, my mother had to work because she wanted to, be able to provide for us because we were homeless at one point. She would leave me with my sister. She would leave the milk prepared. All I had to do was heat it up at 9 years old. That's right. I changed her diapers. And so I was like a father figure. So it was very detrimental to me, almost, and it almost just took me out, like I almost lost everything. So, when people share their stories, I'm very appreciative of that because I know how hard that is. And I know how that can really affect people, And so, it's tough. And we definitely need to speak more about that, right? Because, people are dying, people are overdosing, and why? What's going on? What is this fentanyl stuff? Right? It seems like it's more about trying to kill people than it is about trying to sell a drug and be a drug dealer, right? Because that's one thing, but why would you kill people? Why are you selling them something that could kill them? And then at the very least, if you're just all about money, right, you're a greedy, soulless person, don't you want them to come back and give you more money? So I think something is more to it than we think with that fentanyl stuff, right? And why that's being put into a bunch of different stuff. And then recently I was watching the news, and they're making them look like candy, different colors and all that stuff. But why? I mean, it does seem like the goal is to kill, and so that definitely needs to be looked into really by our government. I mean, there's so much more stuff that's more important than Donald Trump and that January 6th nonsense, right? That our government, that affects all of us, that our government should be addressing, and they don't. It's like it's like we're in a reality show when they're talking about this January 6th and all this other extra stuff that just you have with the transgender stuff and the LGBT, and I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm just saying the debates and all that, and then we got men dressing like women that are reading to children in libraries. Like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand that. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have a right to do what you want, but why do you have to do it in that way? Yeah, I don't understand it, right? So it seems like there's agenda, really. It's agenda, so you have to pay attention to that stuff, right? And don't take everything you're told on CNN for face value. Nowadays, you have to do your own research. It doesn't matter if you forget Fox, forget CNN. You have to do your own research, right? And for those who watch CNN and call everything else fake news, think about this. If you believe in fake news, how do you know that the news you're watching is not fake news? What makes you believe that everything else is fake, right? I don't understand that. People just said, well, why do you think your news ain't fake? The information you're getting from CNN isn't fake, right? Why do you? Right? So it's just like people want to believe what they want to believe. And we have to get out of that mentality, and we have to see what the facts tell us, right? Not what our emotions tell us, right? The grief is rough. Yes, it is. The grief is very rough. I'm a tough guy, man. My wife would tell you, I'm not somebody that cries often and stuff. And, but that took me, like, I almost didn't even come back, my wife is like, you have your family and you have kids and, it's tough, man. And anybody that's ever had to, go through that, my condolences, and I send my heart, my heart goes out to you, because it's tough, and it's 6 years now, and it's still like it happened yesterday, so, definitely tell people you love them. Never, miss an opportunity to not tell people you love them, because you never know what tomorrow may bring. And so, yeah, it's definitely a tough thing. So, it's crazy, man. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with in my life. That's for sure. That's for sure. Sure is, Freddie. It's called population control. Yeah, that's what it's all about nowadays, doing an inventory on people. And that's what I try to, I was talking to somebody and I was telling them about all this and how it connects to what's happening here in Yonkers. They're like, Freddie, you're all over the place. I said, no, it's just that I don't have a lot of time to tell you in the details. So I have to kind of bounce around. But, people don't understand what Agenda 2030 is and how that impacts you right here in Yonkers. What does Agenda 2030 have to do with the developments going up? It does. UN, United Nations, Agenda 2030, right? A lot of people don't even know that is, but it has to do with the developments going up here. You ever heard the term mixed use developments? Well, that comes from Agenda 2030. And so now they're doing that all over Yonkers. And that's where these people are also getting a lot of money. And they know this, right? And people don't realize what's happening in real estate. It's a new thing where it's all about these hedge funds coming together to gobble up all the real estate in the country. Doesn't matter if it's commercial or residential, inflating the prices so the average person can't buy a home, because they can't afford it. The average person can't start a business now because everything's going to be big corporations, big CVS's, Walmart's, Walgreens, right? So these guys are buying all these real estates, and then they created an investment product called REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust. And so if you can't afford to buy real estate and invest on your own with your own money, you can buy into it like a stock, right? So you can put like $20 into a REITs, and these guys that go out and buy property, and whatever the properties generate each month, you get a percentage of that base. So that's a new investment product that I don't know how new it is, but they're really pushing that now, and they figure, let's turn everybody into renters. Let's gobble up all the properties out there, and that's why they're buying up everything now for a lot more, like the Tanglewood Shopping Center here in Yonkers on Central Avenue that was sold for $15 million, even though it was valued at $12 million, and now they're not renewing any of the businesses their leases, and there's a lot of small business owners there. Local business owners that are not getting their leases renewed because they want them out now. They bought that there, and now they're going to put something else. They're going to bring in big name chain stores. Yonkers is not going to ever be the same. It's going to be way overcrowded. It's going to be way overcrowded. But it all has to do with that Agenda 2030, and people think that's a conspiracy. It's not. Smart cities, you know what that's about? Where did the mayor was talking about these smart lights that they put in? Where did he get the money for that? And did anybody realize that all the security cameras at the Yonkers public schools were replaced with these new ones all over, but they cry and say they don't have no money? Where did they get the money for that? From the federal government. Why? Because they're coming with facial recognition software, and that's what the federal government wants. So they give the local governments this money to install all this and implement their plans locally. It's a global plan that's being implemented globally through the use of local politicians. And that is why corruption is not going to get rooted out anytime soon by any federal agency, because it's all a part of the plan. They need corrupt local officials to implement this, right? And those smart lamps, the street lights that they're putting up, those things can communicate with your phone. So they're going to know where you at the minute they want to know where you at in real time. And that's the new world that we're going to be living in. And when you talk about population control, Pete Colello, I'm sorry, Pete, I'll just call you Pete, right? And that's already happening in China. Get ready for your social scorecard. Make sure you don't do things like buy alcohol with your money, because that goes against your social scorecard, or it will. In China, it does, right? They judge people by their habits. You're allowed to buy beer, but if you do, it'll go against your social scorecard. And what does that mean? That means that when you go to apply for a job or even a loan, they're going to pull up that social scorecard and say, wait a minute, you're not good. You buy beer. You like to buy candy, things that are no good for you. You have a low social scorecard, right? It's like credit score, but for your life, right? And everything that you do. You jaywalk, that goes against your social scorecard. Right. And all the cameras are going to be tracking you, and people are going to be monitoring these cameras. And as you go across, it's going to put a big square around your face, and it's going to say your name and where you live. Male, Freddie Vasquez, Yonkers, New York, 87 Nepperhan Avenue. That's where I live. So, it's just what is happening, folks. And nobody knows. Yeah, they care about it. Right? They're fighting over other things. Your government sold out to the lead, to the cabal globalists. That's right. And you folks, and I'm trying to, hopefully, if you can see my Instagram page, I mean, listen, I've been called an anti-Semitic. They've been calling me anti-Semite recently because I said that the developers are Jewish. Mostly they are. That's not a fact, right? It's the truth, and, so I put a video showing that, if you want to call me anti-Semitic, or what about all these videos of, these Jewish rabbis? I'm a goyim. Well, they don't really know, but I'm a goyim. I guess non-Jewish people are known as goyim. Right. And so what's up with all these videos of all these rabbis and, Jewish groups talking about being slaves soon in the coming, when the Messiah comes, we're going to be the slaves. That's what they say. They say we're already the slaves. I got these videos that are just bad. I'm like, but you guys should know what it's like to be persecuted because you're a certain part of a certain group. Right. I mean, you had the whole Holocaust and stuff. So to see these videos of so many rabbis speaking about people that are not Jewish, and referring to us as animals, less than human, we're going to be slaves soon. We are their slaves. We build the buildings and the cars, and, you don't really see them working. They're the bosses, And I've heard this directly from certain individuals. I'd be like, what's up with that? You know what I mean? So don't call me an anti-Semite for pointing that fact out. That's a fact. You know what I mean? And we have to understand that, and when one certain group controls a lot, there's gonna, by default, things are gonna happen where other people are not gonna have the same opportunities, right? I mean, it's just by default. And so you can check that out on my Instagram. I put up videos. I put of all the people that are Jewish, right? That are head of Disney, Viacom, BT, all of these media, all of them, Fox, CNN. It doesn't matter. It's all. And I put up some Chuck Schumer, Joe Pinion. You should check that out. He's running against Chuck Schumer for senator, right? He's a senator. And Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi says in this video that even if the Capitol was to come crumbling down, that her number one priority would be Israel. What? And so we give millions and millions and billions, I should say, billions of dollars to a country like Israel. And if you say anything about Israel, you're labeled an anti-Semite. Now, if you can say whatever you want about Russia, you can say whatever you want about China, but if you say anything about Israel, you are then labeled an anti-Semite. And in fact, they even there's Israeli Jewish lobbyist groups that are trying to make it illegal to say anything about Israel. You can get fined up to $250,000. What? So we have to see what's all happening here. Why is there so many? I think, in my personal opinion, Israel, the country, and I'm not talking about all Jews, I'm not trying to generalize, but I'm saying Israel definitely has America by the balls, basically, right? And billions of our taxpayer money has gone to Israel, and our politicians, video after video, I posted showing their allegiance to Israel almost over America, and that's a national security threat. Right. And did you know that many of our politicians have dual citizenships with Israel? That's a national security threat. No other country that would be accepted. You cannot have a dual citizenship with China or Russia or Iran and be in our U.S. government. Right. But if you have a dual citizenship with Israel, you're OK. Right. And so billions of our money is going to Israel. And I think that definitely has to stop. So, and there's something, to it here, folks, to it. MGM Grand, another one, is run and owned by a Jewish individual. And I say that because MGM Grand is coming to Yonkers, and all the developers are Jewish, right? So are Yonkers going to become more Jewish and everybody else out of here? I don't know. And I love all people. It's not about being anti-Semite. I just have to point out what's obvious, right? It's obvious to me. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. I keep it real, and so come back here if you want the truth. I'm up out of here. Thank you for joining me for the Anthony DiMaggio interview. If you haven't seen the first 7 interview, podcast episodes, go check it out. So I'm Basement Politics, Unfiltered. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Please continue to share, support, reach out to me. Let me know if there's any topics or things you want me to touch on. I will look at it. I will, and email me. That's the best way to messages. I don't always get them through Messenger. politicwithfred@gmail.com. If you have any information, if you have anything specific, you can send it there. Let me know. We'll discuss. I'm always on top of this housing thing, folks, right? And the reason why I went into that whole thing about the, Israel and Jewish and because I was called anti-Semitic, because I mentioned the fact that, the wealthy Jewish developers coming here and they're pushing non-Jewish people out. They're raising the rents and they're just pushing people out. And, and then some people are living in squalor. You got to see that they don't fix it because they want people to leave. And affordable housing is an emergency here in Yonkers now. Our schools are an emergency state now. And yet all I hear is all about the developers. Developers. They're pushing out small businesses here in Yonkers. People like me with a small business from Yonkers, been here all my life, damn near. Can't even get my business going without all the shit that I've been through, all the money that I spent. 2 years now. But you got some rich developer coming in here. They get everything. And they ain't doing anything for the people. Not one damn thing are they doing for anybody in Yonkers. None of them. But we're supposed to be happy about it. Really? Does that make sense to you? Are you ready to leave Yonkers and be kicked out of your home? If not, you better vote next year. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. Thank you for joining me, folks. Have a beautiful night and beautiful rest of the weekend. I may be on Sunday or I may be not. It just depends, baby. I'm up at it. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Thank you for joining me, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. I love everybody. I don't care what color, what race, what religion. You know, as long as you treat other people nice, you know, and you care about people, you have respect for people, I'm going to treat you with the same respect. You understand what I'm saying? I am. So I don't want to hear none of that nonsense. I love everybody. I like anybody. As long as you're cool, I'm cool with you. But I have to point out facts. Facts are facts. That's a fact. Where are the other developers at? I don't see no Puerto Rican developers. Where the black developers at? What about the Irish? Any Irish developers out there? Any Italian developers? Any Mexican developers? Anyone? Any going developers out there? Anyone? Not one. Why is that?
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
I'm up out here, folks. I should have been a comedian. Great show. Love, peace, and soul. Thank you, Romario. I appreciate it, brother. You're the man. I did see your message about, we'll talk about it. I messaged you, Freddie. I'll definitely take a look at that. Thank you, Regina. Have a beautiful and blessed night. I'm Freddie Vasquez. I'm here for the people that may not feel like may not have a voice or feel like they don't have a voice. I'm that voice. Come on my show if it's important, if it's something that definitely needs to be heard. Let's talk about it right here on Basement Politics. The show's growing. People are talking about it. Trust me. When I speak about someone or something, shit moves quick. Excuse my language. I just want to make the damn point. Shit moves. I'm Freddie Vasquez, Basement Politics. I'm for the people, man. Take care.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
In another one, Mr. Rumo lied to me. And I don't vote for a person that lied to me. Thank you very much.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Are we? Let's make it happen, guys. Make me happy today. That's a lot of stars. Are we? Let's make it happen, guys. Make me happy today. That's a lot of stars. So that my competition, the guy who always talks about me, an optical illusion that people are following him. The truth is, nobody is. The truth is,
Freddie wins. Fatality.
benefit him. Because he doesn't cover. He only talks trash. Benefit him. Because he doesn't cover. He only talks trash. We are the real McCoy. Benefit him. Because he doesn't cover. He only talks trash. So that my competition, the guy who always talks about me, benefit him. Because he doesn't cover. He only talks trash. We are the real McCoy. That hopes that the people will follow them. It's not working.
Freddie
Look.
Fatality. Freddie wins. Fatality.
No!